Welcome back everyone to Aussie Scrapper. Today I'm participating in the Christmas 2017 Aussie YouTube Hop. In order to win one of the lovely prizes from our sponsors, all you have to do is watch everyone's video and then leave a comment on everyone's channel. In the description box you will find a link to Morgyn's video, so click on that, watch her video and then leave a comment. Then once you finish watching her video, you can click on her link for the next new YouTuber. Well, that was a mouthful for me today. And so on till you have commented on everyone's videos, and then you'll be in the draw to win one of the lovely prizes. Our challenge this month obviously was Christmas, and as I hadn't done my Christmas cards yet, I decided I was going to make them this year, and they're going to be a little bit alternate. What I did was, all off camera, I used my Misty to stamp the Tim Holtz Crazy Cats and Crazy Dog stamps, and I coloured them all in and fussy cut them all out. Now all that I'm doing is I'm just going through some of my stash and trying to work out how I'm going to make these animals a little bit more festive. So I'm just looking through my stamps and stencils and trying to come up with an idea. So I'm just pulling out things and trying to see where they might go and how it all might work. I'm going to be making the background using my distress inks, which I have not used in a while, so I decided I was going to have a play with them. And I pulled out 4 colours, which were Candied Apple, Fired Brick, Abandoned Coral and Festive Berries. And I'm going to be using some glossy paper for these cards. And the first row of colour there is Candied Apple. The second row is going to be Festive Berries. The third row will be Abandoned Coral. And the fourth row I used Fired Brick. And then I used the fifth row is going to be Festive Berries, and I think I just did the order all over again. Spritzed it with some water. Then using the glossy side down, I just smooshed it all down onto all that lovely ink, and you get all these lovely patterns. No ink is going to go to waste, as I have cut several pieces of these for these cards, and I use up all the ink on that mat. I did mass produce my cards, and they are all going to be different and unique in their own way, as I do use different techniques for the backgrounds, and all the backgrounds are going to have different patterns on them. So even though they are mass produced, they will all have their own unique thing about it. This is going to be the second lot of cards I make, and using the same glossy paper, instead of cutting it into 4 or 5 sheets of paper, what I am doing is I just smushed some Fired Brick onto there and then spritz it with some water and let the paint run down, and I'm just helping it with a brush now to just get it all down that page. Then you'll see me go in with a second row of colour, and this is Candied Apple that I'm using, just doing the same technique. Putting it all down, I'll spritz it with some water and let the colour run down. Now I believe this one ran a little bit better, so you'll see that colour gets down onto my mat, but all I do is I just pick it all up, smoosh it down, pick up as much colour as I can, and I'm getting all sorts of different patterns on my glossy paper. The third colour I use is Abandoned Coral, and I do basically exactly the same technique. And just keep making different patterns until I'm happy with what I see on my page. And then, of course, I will cut all this up into all my little backgrounds. And I think from one sheet, I think I got 4 or 5 cards out of it, or backgrounds for myself. I'm not really sure. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. It was very messy. I can tell you now, if you don't like getting messy, do not try this, because I was really dirty. Well, with paint. But you know what? I had a lot of fun, so it doesn't really matter. So this is going to be the third sheet of glossy paper that I used, and all I did was I just picked up all that ink that had come off my second card. So I utilised every single bit, and soon you'll just see how this card looks. And I quite like all the different patterns on that, and everything was set aside to dry, but look how messy my hands got. They were full of paint, and I did walk around with red hands for a little while. Now you see me going in with my blending tool, and I'm just adding, candied apple, sorry. It's candied apple that I'm just using to go around from the edges, just to add a bit of colour, because once they dried, they were a lot lighter. But the pattern that was formed by the ink, that all still comes through. It's a bit hard to see here on the video. And then I go in, I believe, with some fired brick just around the border, just to give it a bit of pop of colour, and to, I like to ink the edges of my everything, really. I don't know why. It's just a preference of mine. I just like to give it a little border with a darker colour, and here I'm just using fired brick. Now, that colour looks horrible on this screen, but believe me, it was a really nice colour in real life, and I just mixed some of the paint with modelling paste. Sorry, I had a mental blank there. Modelling paste, and I'm going to be using this stencil of a Christmas tree. Now, this stencil came from, I think it was one of the magazines from last year. It was, those paper craft magazines, and it was a pretty good stencil. I was really happy with it. So the colours that I mixed in my modelling paste were, what was it? It was acrylic paints. It was olive green acrylic paint and emerald green acrylic paint. And they were just mixed together. They gave this really lovely shade of green, which the camera's not really picking up. So I just used my stencil, and I did a mass production of all these trees. Then I cut up some little, I believe they're 1 inch by 1 inch squares and some brown paper, and I'm just using some Kitaholic ink, and the colour is coffee, and then I just inked the edges of all that, and you will see me, well, as you do there, just gluing it all down onto the base of my tree. And I've got all these little stars from the same, they came from the same package of stamps and stencils that you got in the magazine. So I stamped them a number of times, and I'm using the ink that I'm using was a lovely gold colour, and there they are all stamped out. And the colour of that ink was, it was called Delicata Golden Spritz ink. It's absolutely beautiful. I loved it. So I'm just going to trim these cards just a little bit, because I want to have a bit of a white border around it. So just trimming them, giving them a bit of a trim so that they fit a little bit nicer on that ready-made card. Now, those cards, I just cheated. Instead of scoring my own paper, all I used was from Kmart. I went and bought a whole batch of clear cards, and I'm just used some double-sided stamp to stamp that on. And I quite like how that little Christmas tree turned out. And with all those little stars that I had, I just fussy cut them out, and I put them on top of the little tree there. Then I glued down one of the doggies, and I quite like that, how they look. So these are just some of those little cats and dogs, and that's what they look like. I'm really, really happy with them. So now it's time to put the greeting, and once again I'm using one of the greetings from that Papercraft stamp giveaway set that they give. And I'm using some Versamark ink, and then I'm going to heat emboss it. Now, originally I used the black heat embossing, but it wasn't fine enough, and it sort of all melted together and looked a little bit horrible. But then I used my Ellison Design embossing powder, and that was just perfect. It is just so fine. Look at that. I just love how that looked once I've used that. And just gluing that down. And then I did ink around the edges of it with that same Delicata golden glitz ink, which I think has become my new friend, even though it's been in my stash for a while. So here are a few of the different cards that you saw. I'm going to be stamping now these little Christmas hats. Now this little stamp is of the little Christmas hat. It's from Eclectic Images. And Eclectic Images is an Australian designer, and I believe she gets her stamps made in the US, but she is an Australian designer. So I bought this off her. I will link it in my description below if anyone is interested. And then I just coloured it in with some watercolour paints. I do apologise if you're hearing any noise in the background. My kids are home and they're making a racket. I've been telling them to be quiet, but I've got no other time to narrate this video but now. So I do apologise if there's any background noise of voices and banging and whatever kids are doing. So once I fussy cut all my little hats, I glued it onto each of the little dogs or cats, and I'm just going to be using some, what is that? It's the Ranger liquid pearls that I used. Gosh, mental blank there. So here is some of the cards, and I'm using the liquid pearls once again in a golden colour just to add a few highlights around the card. So that's the end of my cards. I hope you all enjoyed it, and wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. Please show all the other ladies some support. Until next time, I hope everyone is well.